Shut down ICE! 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 Shut down ICE!
Abolish!
Woo!
All right, hello everybody. Glad that y'all are here today. Like Shirley said, my name is Joe. I'm a member of Workers Strike Back, the organization founded by Kshama Sawant out of her decade in office as a revolutionary socialist in the Seattle City Council. I've been a teacher for 8 years, a union member, and I'm now working for the Kshama for Congress campaign because we are going to get the first revolutionary socialist elected to U.S. Congress. The brutal murder by ICE agents of peaceful activist and mother Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis is a horrific part of Trump's terror campaign against immigrants and working people. Video shows that after Renee was shot, ICE agents denied her medical attention, and soon after, she lost her life. Shame! This is shocking and despicable. Workers Strike Back, Kshama Sawant, and I extend solidarity to Renee's family, friends, and community. We unequivocally condemn this killing, and working people must drive ICE out of Minneapolis and all of our cities at once. Isn't that right?
That's right!
We're gonna drive them out. But the really important question for us is, how do we do that? We need mass protests and civil disobedience combined with mass strike action by public and private sector unions. We need an independent investigation by a democratically elected committee of working people and union members into Renee's killing. And we have to get organized to stop all ICE raids, all of the deportations, and shut down all of the ICE detention centers. Isn't that right?
That's right!
Yeah, come join us. This assault by Trump is horrifying. But these attacks are only possible because of the bipartisan policy of creating, funding, and expanding ICE over 2 decades, including by Kshama's opponent, warmongering, genocidal Democrat Adam Smith. And shamefully, Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz, rather than call for the kinds of mass protests that are needed, is preparing to send in the National Guard to Minneapolis to suppress the protests. Shame on that as well. The Democratic Party and the leadership of labor unions have repeatedly failed to launch any sort of fight back against Trump's attacks. They say they are, but they're freaking not. Union leaders should have called mass strike actions many months ago when immigrant activists Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeza Ozturk, both union members, were abducted and detained by ICE for protesting the genocide in Gaza. Mass strike action and civil disobedience could have stopped Trump's deportation machine in its tracks. I mean, really, I'm saying this as a union member myself as well. Imagine if millions of working class people, of union members, went on strike. The assault on Minnesota would not be happening today.
That's right!
But labor leaders have not done this. And instead, they have allowed the situation to escalate where now both immigrants and U.S. citizens are shamefully being killed. This is because this labor leadership is tied in 1,000 ways, financially and otherwise, to the same Democratic Party that has utterly and repeatedly betrayed working people alongside the Republican Party.
Right.
They are both parties of capitalism and imperialism.
That's right!
The Democrats have been critical in the project of attacking immigrants. Kshama's opponent, U.S. Congressmember Adam Smith, was one of many Democrats to vote for Bush's Homeland Security Act of 2002, which literally created ICE. And since then, Smith has continued to vote for the funding and expansion of ICE, which now Trump commands. In stark contrast, during her time on the Seattle City Council, Kshama fought for and won a ban on the use of crowd control weapons by the Seattle Police Department in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter uprisings. And this is just one example of how Kshama has been a completely different fighter than any of these Democratic Party politicians. Because this ban was not won by Kshama playing nice with the Democrats on City Council. In fact, they got in the way. It was only won because Kshama used her office to build fighting movements and led protesters to peacefully occupy City Hall. And that's the type of leadership we need in Congress. It's the type of leadership we will never get from the Democratic or the Republican parties. That's one of the many reasons why I'm fighting to elect Shama as an independent revolutionary socialist. We need leaders who will call for what's necessary, what's actually necessary. Mass strike action and civil disobedience. We need fighters who will lead the fight and galvanize workers into mass struggle, and Shama is that kind of rare leader and fighter. Yeah, give it up. That's right. Working people continue to agree that we desperately need a new party of the working class. Poll after poll shows this. People know that the Democrats and Republicans do not represent us, and we need a new party. And electing Shama could be an incredible first step in that project. Isn't that right? It's clear that we need to fight back against both anti-immigrant, billionaire-backed parties to end ICE, the terrors they are committing on our communities, and the deportations once and for all. Solidarity, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm going to get us into the groove with another chant. Down with Republicans and Democrats. We need a party for the working class. Down with Republicans and Democrats.
We need a party of the working class.
Woo!
Hey everybody, my name is M. Smith. As Shirley said, I'm an elected member of the National Coordinating Committee for Workers Strike Back. I'm the campaign manager for Workers Strike Back founder Shama Sawant's independent revolutionary socialist campaign for Congress. The murder of peaceful activist and mother Renee Good in broad daylight by an ICE agent in Minneapolis is yet another violent attack carried out by Donald Trump, the Republicans, and their deportation machine. The Trump administration deported over 600,000 immigrants last year. On top of that, they have stripped 1.6 million immigrants of their legal protections, and almost 36 people died in ICE custody last year, the highest number in over 2 decades since the agency was built. Renee Good was killed after the Trump administration flooded Minneapolis with more than 2,000 ICE agents. This is a terror campaign against immigrants and working people. It is stunning and tragic for the working class that despite mass anger against war, ICE terror in our cities, and the cost of living crisis, the labor leadership has completely failed to act. There have been none of the mass protests and strike actions that are needed to fight to stop imperialist war and the genocide in Gaza and the occupation of Palestinian lands, to shut down ICE, to win free health care for all, and to tax the billionaires to fund our needs. This is why we are building Workers Strike Back, and this is why Shama Sawant is running as an independent socialist for U.S. Congress against warmongering, genocidal Democrat Adam Smith, who's the congressman for this Democrat, shamefully for 30 years. We need that to change. We need to throw him out and put a revolutionary socialist in office. Shama's campaign is calling for an independent investigation into Renee's killing by a democratically elected committee of working people and union members. Working people can have no confidence in any investigation by ICE or any other department of the Trump administration or the U.S. Congress into Renee Good's killing.
That's right.
Shama is calling to stop the ICE raids, to stop the deportations, and to shut down ICE and the detention centers. She is calling to drive ICE out of Minneapolis and every city in the country. She is also calling for the strategy that is needed to win: mass protests, mass civil disobedience, and mass strike action. This is why we need to elect Shama as the first ever revolutionary socialist to U.S. Congress and build a new party for the working class. Because we need this type of leadership, this type of fighting leadership that is unfortunately not on offer from anyone else. There is not a single politician in Congress that is calling for these kinds of mass protests. What are the Democrats calling for? As Joe already said, Democratic Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota is preparing to call in the National Guard to stop protesters. Not a single Democratic politician is calling for mass protests in response to Renee's killing. Not a single one. That includes Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani, and AOC. We cannot have any illusions Here in the Democratic Party, we cannot rely on one arm of the capitalist state to end the terror against us by another arm of the capitalist state. And the Democratic and the Republican Party are two arms of this state. They have built this machine together. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, also a Democrat, told working people in Minneapolis to, quote, meet hate with love and do not take the bait. He did this at a press conference where he praised the Minneapolis Police Department, the same police department that murdered George Floyd. Meanwhile, the U.S. war machine is ramping up. After 2 years of genocide in Gaza, U.S. imperialism is turning its sights on Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, and China. A week ago, the United States carried out a violent coup in Venezuela, killing at least 100 people, including civilians. We are in an escalatory spiral of war and repression. Trump has certainly proven accurate what Workers' Strike Back has been saying all through the presidential election in 2024, that Trump is virulently pro-war and pro-billionaire. At the same time, it would be a deadly mistake for working people to let the Democratic Party wash its hands of any single one of these things. The Democratic Party built this deportation machine right alongside the Republican Party. Sharma's opponent, Democrat Adam Smith, voted to create ICE in 2002. He voted repeatedly to fund it. Barack Obama, a Democrat, still holds the record of deporting more immigrants than any other president, Republican or Democrat. Obama deported 3 million people, earning himself the shameful title of deporter-in-chief. Last month, Democrats, including Adam Smith, voted with Republicans to fund over $900 billion for weapons and war as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. Democrats funded Trump's attacks on Venezuela. Adam Smith voted for that bill. Democrats have also actively supported the economic sanctions that have had and continue to have catastrophic consequences for Venezuelan working and poor people. And the so-called progressive Democrats have refused to fight back. Every day they carry water for the Democratic Party. Trump is holding Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in New York City. Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, has not called for even a single protest against this. Mamdani could have called for a day of mass protests, making all buses and subway rides free on that day under the pressure of mass mobilization.
That's right.
He hasn't called for protests against this detention of Maduro. He hasn't called for mass protests for free mass transit. He hasn't called for mass protests for a $30 an hour minimum wage in New York City. What the hell is he doing? What are any of these progressive Democrats doing? What is the Democratic Party doing? What is the labor leadership doing? We need mass protests. We need mass strike action to fight back against this.
Right.
Meanwhile, the price of buses just went up in New York City. We are in a crisis. And at the center of that crisis is a crisis of leadership. Not a single major union leader is calling for mass strike action. The Minnesota AFL-CIO isn't even calling for mass protests, much less strike action.
There has been no fight back by the Democratic Party or most of the labor leadership. We have seen a major development in Minnesota where some labor leaders have now called for strike action on January 23rd. We need to demand that the rest of the labor leadership nationally take up that call. The labor movement should turn January 23rd into a day of nationwide mass protests and mass strike action against these attacks by ICE and the attacks on Venezuela and Iran. It's important for us to understand how this call for strike action in Minnesota came about. It is not because the labor leadership in Minnesota is any more militant than labor leaders nationally. It is stunning and tragic for the working class that despite mass anger against war, ICE terror in our cities, the cost of living crisis, the vast majority of American labor leaders have completely failed to act. There have been none of the mass protests and strike action that are needed to stop imperialist war, to end the genocide in Gaza and the occupation in Palestinian lands, to shut down ICE, to win free healthcare for all, to tax the billionaires, to fund any one of our needs. We are in this situation today because of the failure of the existing leadership at every level on the left and in the labor movement.
The current union leadership is tied at the hip to the Democratic Party. The same Democratic Party that created ICE, deported millions of immigrants, broke a railroad strike, funded a genocide, the list goes on. if labor leaders aren't willing to fight when union members are being abducted and detained and deported by ICE, then when will they fight? And the leaders of many socialist organizations, including the Democratic Socialists of America, are no better. In fact, they have been some of the most dogged defenders of the do-nothing progressive Democrats and the labor leadership. This is how it works. DSA leaders carry water for AOC and Mamdani. AOC and Mamdani carry water for Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democratic Party as a whole and the system of capitalism and imperialism as a whole. That is how the system works. That is how the system sustains and maintains itself, and that is how we've gotten into this position. Even many so-called Marxist organizations are refusing to do what is needed because they put their own narrow interests of their own organization ahead of the interests of the working class. I'm very glad that we are holding this joint protest today with Workers Strike Back, Revolutionary Workers, Seattle Revolutionary Socialists, the American Party of Labor, and Kshama Sawant's campaign for Congress. We need a lot more of that. We need to unite as workers and socialists against both of these billionaire-backed parties. This year, we have an opportunity to elect a proven working-class leader to Congress. For 10 years on the Seattle City Council, Kshama went to war for working people. She fought against big business, corporate landlords, and the Democratic Party. She built movements of tens of thousands of people and won victory after victory. Kshama is the socialist who took on the establishment and won the nation's highest minimum wage. On January 1st of this year, the minimum wage in Seattle went up again to $21.30 because of that victory. She won the Amazon tax for affordable housing. She won a long list of renters' rights, including a ban on winter evictions, which is in place right now. A fundamental reason Kshama has been such a successful fighter is that she is a revolutionary socialist. She understood that working people simply cannot win if our leaders prioritize their cushy careers and keep peace with the capitalist class and their political representatives. In contrast to them, Kshama went to war for working people against the wealthy in the Democratic and Republican parties. This is also why I'm a revolutionary socialist. In addition to being members of Workers Strike Back, both Kshama and I are also members of Revolutionary Workers. War and terror, the occupation and oppression of the Palestinian people, and the exploitation of billions of working people will never, ever end on the basis of capitalism. Working people need international revolutionary movements to overthrow capitalism and to fight for global socialism, starting by taking the top corporations into democratic public ownership of workers. As a revolutionary socialist, Kshama is running for Congress to end U.S. military aid to Israel, to shut down ICE in the detention centers, for free healthcare for all by taxing the rich, for national rent control, for a massive expansion of high-quality social housing, to cancel student and medical debt, to stop the war on Venezuela, to take the big oil and gas companies into democratic public ownership, and for a new party of the working class. Think about what it would mean for working people to have a leader like Kshama in office. Someone who will demand what workers need and build movements to win it. Someone who will call for mass protests and strike action, who will fight back against both parties of Wall Street and war, who will expose the failures and the betrayals of the Democratic and Republican politicians both. We have a chance to elect Kshama as the first ever revolutionary socialist to U.S. Congress. But first, we have to break through the gatekeepers in the Democratic Party, in the labor leadership, and in the socialist movement. Gatekeeping comes in many forms. For example, we have heard from some people that socialists just shouldn't participate in elections. We're often told at protests that Kshama is not allowed to speak at a protest or an event because she's running for office. We need to reject that idea. Excluding a leader like Kshama, who is a fighter and has never betrayed the working class, is a gift to the ruling class, to the Democratic Party, and to genocidal Democrats like Adam Smith. The problem is not that we have too many working class fighters in office. The problem is that we have none in the U.S. Congress. We need to fight back against the gatekeepers, and we need to get organized. Our campaign just launched Socialists for Kshama. We are getting organized as rank and file socialists to break the socialist movement and the labor movement away from the Democratic Party. We're calling on DSA members and members of all other socialist organizations to join us. We need to demand that our organizations not only endorse Shama, but actively build her campaign. And we are building this campaign all around the country. And just to say on that, one of the cities where the highest number of working people have donated to Shama's campaign, in addition to Seattle and Federal Way and Kent, Washington, is Peoria, Illinois. Because Workers Strike Back members in Peoria have gone out and built this campaign, set up tables, gone to grocery stores, gone to protests, and talked to working people. And working people in Peoria understand that even though they can't vote for Shama, they have a stake in this fight. They understand that they want to put in $10, $20, $50, $100. They want to sign down on a petition. They want to come out and organize because they would benefit from a revolutionary socialist, someone who is actually fighting back against all of those things. And so we need to build this campaign all around the country. So we have to actively build this campaign, not just endorse, but actively build. And we need individual socialists to get involved in building this campaign too. We're having a national Zoom meeting for Socialists for Shama next Sunday, January 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I urge everyone here to join us for that meeting to discuss how to build this movement. We have a rent control town hall on February 1st. Please sign down, especially if you live in the 9th Congressional District, sign down on one of these petitions to get Shama on the ballot. We now have 1,700 signatures nearly from every city in the 9th Congressional District, and we need to build on that. We want to get 5,000 signatures to show how much support this campaign has. Just in closing, this is a historic opportunity. The working class needs leadership. It's a historic opportunity and a historic crisis. But we need to turn politics upside down, and we need to elect Shama Sawant to U.S. Congress. Thank you. Solidarity.
We've been out tabling, building this campaign all over the district in cities here in Seattle, in Columbia City, in Federal Way, in Kent. Many of you have seen us around here in this neighborhood at the Columbia City Light Rail Station. As Em mentioned earlier, we have just about 1,700 ballot signatures for Shama, but more importantly, we've been talking to people about the demands that we've talked about today, about shutting down ICE, about no war on Venezuela, about fighting for free healthcare for all by taxing the rich, national rent control, and people widely agree with these demands. The problem that we are facing in this country today is not that people don't want free healthcare. It's not that people, aren't disgusted and horrified by this murder, by the ICE killings, by the deportations, by the attacks by Republicans and Democrats for the last decades on working people. It is that there is no fucking leadership right now that is actually fighting, that has, a record of fighting and winning these things like Shama Sawant does. That is why we need to be going all out for this. That's why we've had over 200 people already come out to table, to door knock, to poster, to help build this campaign. That's why we've had people come drive up here from Federal Way, drive hours from places like Arlington. We've had people fly on their own dime from Los Angeles to come for a weekend and table for the campaign. I mean, it is urgent. In previous election campaigns on the city council, Shama's last re-election campaign, a fight against a right-wing recall, we knocked almost 250,000 doors, in the city council district. That is the kind of operation that we need. We need to be talking to all of our neighbors. We need to be talking to people on the street. We need hundreds, thousands of people to come out, and talk to people about why this campaign is important, why it would be groundbreaking, why it would be a political earthquake to elect Shama Sawant to the U.S. Congress. Because we are fucking missing leadership right now. And Shama is a leader with a proven track record. So we have, ways for you to get involved, to sign up to volunteer. We are out here. We have a table or a door knock or a postering shift almost every single day. So there's tables over there with more information about that. Yeah, please come check that out. Thank you very much. Solidarity.